Welcome to the latest edition of Death, Money, Taxes Law. It's 2026. Holy cow, where did the time go, Armando? Can you believe it?
Yep, goes quick for sure.
Yeah. So most folks maybe think about some resolutions at the beginning of the year. A lot of folks are business planning. Our firm does the same thing, and one of the things we try to do is stay on top of our clients and their personal situations. So how do we do that? One of the things we have created is a checklist. Let me pull it up here, and Armando and I can start kind of talking about it as
Yeah,
far as uh,
we've got
what our
many, many
thoughts are
checklists.
and how it plays a part with our clients. Can you see that, Armando?
I do. Perfect. Looks great, Tom.
Yeah. So, what issues does our clients need to be thinking about at the start of the year? Big part of our firm is personal issues. So part of the process when you come into AXIOM Founders Family Office is Armando meets with our clients for about an hour and a half. Most often it's a husband and wife, and we ask a lot of personal questions. And then based on those answers, we bring that those answers up at each meeting, and then are they still applicable? Because sometimes things happen between meetings, so we want to stay on top of that. Um, Down here, we kind of see this section. Are there any life events that are likely to occur for them and their families? And our motto, you can kind of maybe touch on that a little bit.
Yeah, let me do that. So, the checklists, Tom, of course, are to help us be more thorough because it's easy to not see things. And so we rely on these checklists so that we can be thorough in if it's an IRA distribution, an RMD, or trust documents, or as this checklist is year-end planning. So for this particular one that you and I often refer to as life events, which is what? Well, that could be a marriage, a divorce, birth of a baby, death of a spouse, death of a parent, changing jobs, moving houses, changing careers. All those can be very stressful, very traumatic events in a person's life. Well, why does that involve us? Well, we had a client recently pass away, and now we will be working with his widow and working with his adult children so that we can help them understand what was set up and what this means going forward for the family. Birth, what does that mean? Well, for us, it means maybe a new 529 account to begin saving for that baby for college when the baby is now an 18-year-old young adult. Or it might be helping them when they're buying a house to get that mortgage broker on board and help them evaluate how much house can they really afford? How much house do they really want to afford? And how does that house need to be titled so that it really is safeguarded in terms of an asset protection perspective, but safe in case there's some type of maybe a lawsuit or something happens because life events happen all the time. And so all these life events require that we take some action to help safeguard and protect that family as best we can.
Yeah, and I'll touch on that. One of the things that I think I'm most proud of is that we take a serious interest in our clients and what's going on. And one of the strongest testimonies that we've had is our clients coming back to us after they've lost a loved one and said, you know what, we were able to fully grieve and not have to worry about any of the finances or what was going on for taxes, et cetera, because everything was done ahead of time.
Yeah, because we made it get done. We made sure that it.
Right. Unfortunately, not everybody in the industry is proactive in that. So that's why we send out these issues. So we recently had a client who had come down with cancer. We had emergency meetings and we said, hey, let's double check, make sure all the beneficiaries are correct. Are the registrations set up correctly? Is the trust fully funded? Yes, everything was done correctly. And now that widow can grieve her husband that she lost. It's a long time marriage and not have to worry about is the mortgage going to get paid? How am I going to pay my bills? What happens to this, that, and the other? So that's part of I think the value that we had, and I'm kind of proud to say that we try to do the best we can to help our clients in those
Yeah.
situations.
And we get involved in the entire life cycle of a person from birth to death. There are things that we can do that we should do that people just have to deal with when those life events happen, and we can certainly help them address those issues.
Yeah. So next categories is a big part of our client meetings is cash flow issues. I mean, yeah, investments are great, stocks and bonds and all that stuff, but you know what pays for your bills? It's cash. So we always want to make sure we have a decent understanding of what's going on in our clients' lives. Are they going to be remodeling the backyard or kitchen and it's going to cost $100,000 or $200,000, or is it going to be $50,000? Are they going to be removing, relocating, et cetera? So you always want to make sure, hey, what's going on this year as far as cash flow issues, and then what adjustments do we need to make?
Right, exactly, exactly. And we're not mapping out, monthly income and outflow in most cases, but we can and have done that in the past, and we'll do that when it's necessary, so that the family understands what they have to work with, and we can help them make the appropriate choices going forward.
Right. RMDs, we just finished that up for our clients. We always kind of start at the beginning of the year and make a master list. And RMDs are required minimum distributions. So on those 401ks, IRAs, 403bs that you get a tax break on the front end. Well, now Uncle Sam is saying, "Hey, we want to see some money being taken out, and you got to pay taxes on it." So we want to make sure we're planning those out appropriately. This one, Armando, I'll let you touch on. Our clients are very giving. They want to help out the next generation. Maybe they want to give to their parents.
Right.
Let's
Yeah,
talk about
so
annual gifts.
so gifting has, and I just had a conversation about this today with a client. Gifting, you can make annual gifts where the money that you give is not taxable to the person who receives it, and it's not any tax impact to you either. There's a what's called a lifetime exclusion, and it's a point that can be very confusing. But what we're looking to do for the family is help the family make the gifts that they want to make in a way that makes the most sense. And with those annual limits that are on the gifting amounts, annual limits by IRS or by Congress, I suppose, really, we want to make sure stay within those annual limits. And if you exceed those limits, for example, if you give a big chunk of money to your son who bought a house this year, now you gave him 50,000 to help them get the house. Well, the annual exclusion, that's above the annual limit. So you do have to file a tax return on it, but you don't pay any taxes on it. And that's a real big source of confusion. You file to notify IRS that you're using part of your lifetime exclusion, but you are not paying tax on that. And the son receiving the money, he's not paying tax on that either. But it's just IRS requirement, a requirement that you have to file that to keep track of it, because they have what's called this lifetime exclusion. Right now, today, in January of 2026, that lifetime exclusion for a single person is 15 million. And what that means is you can give away up to $15 million, and there's no tax implications on that gifting. But you do have to file with IRS certain forms to keep track of that. So yes, when people are generous and they want to give, we want to help them give, of course, and do it in a way that makes most sense given the family's goals, their values, what they're trying to accomplish. And does that mean they give the money now today, or maybe they wait for 5 years, or maybe they wait till even longer? But those conversations are important, again, to help the family reach the goals, given their values and given the assets they have that they can work with.
Great overview, Armando. Next section. Are you planning to buy or sell a business, personal or real property this year? I mean, if you're planning to sell your business, you can get that done in about a couple of weeks, right, Armando?
Not necessarily, well, you can, but it's not going to get the best price or the best outcome for sure. Really, the planning on that needs to begin 2 to 5 years ahead of time. 5 years or more is even better, because it really is a much longer process. And to get the best value from it, the business has to be prepared to sell, which means it has to be pretty much running on automatic without the owner involved in those day-to-day decisions. So planning ahead with that valuable asset is extremely important. And whenever you sell any kind of a big asset, well, what's there waiting to collect? Taxes. Taxes are waiting there to be collected, taken from you, and given to the IRS or to the state or somebody else. So it's important to have a tax strategy leading into it. and making sure that you take all those appropriate steps. That's why we have our Scottsdale Founders Forum events to help those business owners understand what steps are appropriate so that when they have that exit, it really is the best for them at that time, given what they've known. And they've come out feeling great about having built that company and sold it for the right amount and sold it the way they did actually sell it at that time.
Yeah, and of course, I was being sarcastic. With our
Right.
clients, most of their net worth, I would say probably 60, 70, 80% of their net worth is inside of a business. So one of the things we recently started doing was business valuations so we could do the proper planning. What do I mean by planning? Where Armando touched on it. He touched on tax planning, financial planning, estate planning, and also charitable planning. Holy cow. The IRS code is friendly towards, people being charitable. And also we need to make sure, again, what's the next step? So a lot of these business owners, they want to exit, maybe they want to buy another business. So we need to know this on the front end, and the sooner the better. Exit planning is good business strategy. It is not transactional, which is what most people kind of think. The next thing we had on our checklist was review of their investment risk tolerance. We kind of touch base on our clients' portfolios periodically, and we always try to find out on the front end, are our clients watching the news every single day? Are they looking into their accounts every single day? How is their stress level, et cetera? Because if you just watch the headlines, holy cow, you never know what your blood pressure is going to go to. So we
Right.
also always want to make sure we review our clients' accounts periodically. Are they still doing what we intended them or set them out to do? Any thoughts on that, Hermano?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree 100% there, Tom. We're trying to make sure that whatever the investments are they in the right places? Are they producing the cash flow that is making sense given the lifestyle that you want to lead? And from a tax perspective, are we drawing from the accounts in a way that minimizes the taxes? So a lot goes into it. It's not just take that portfolio, put it into some kind of a mutual fund that's mixed and let it sit there. It's what about the taxes today? What about the taxes when you pull that money out? What about when you die? How does that go to whomever? And what's it going to mean for them for taxes as well? So we have to look at those quite often so that we understand how is that portfolio allocated. And given all those life changes, the birth, the death, the divorce, the marriage, the buying of the house, the selling house, change careers, all those changes might dictate that we need to go back to that portfolio and do some reallocations. And one of the common things that we have doing, Tom, of course, is when someone retires and now they're not getting that paycheck like they used to. Well, now we have to begin that paycheck from the portfolio. So we'll start getting those dividends and making sure they receive that in their checking account versus being reinvested in the portfolio, or maybe reallocating the portfolio to put it into stocks that are paying dividends, because now that creates a new cash flow for them that helps to replace the paycheck they've been getting for the last 40 years during their working career.
Yeah, great point. And let's one of the first things we do for our clients is recreate a balance sheet, which will include not only their stocks and bonds, but do they hold some real estate? Do they hold a business? How about insurance? Do they have cash value insurance? Do they have other kind of investments, REITs, et cetera, oil and gas?
Yep.
We put it all on a balance sheet, and then we say, hey, what's the exit plan for these assets? So when we talk about your portfolio, we're not just talking about ETF stocks and bonds, et cetera. We're talking about your total balance sheet. And then we kind of allocate each registration or each asset accordingly. And do we need to be thinking about getting out of some of these investments? Our clients do an incredible job of accumulating assets. They got a nice, incredible net worth. A lot of times they didn't always think about how or when or what they should do as far as tax consequences of getting out of some of these investments.
Oh, right, right. And balance sheet is a term that accountants and bankers use often. People generally don't. But what people do generally use is net worth. And what does that really mean? The net worth, the personal balance sheet, what does it really mean? It means if you look at all the stuff that you own, what's that worth? And you subtract from that any monies that you owe, like maybe a mortgage, maybe a car loan, subtract all that. The net number is what we what is referred to as your net worth. And we create that personal balance sheet, Tom, as you said, so that we can see what's there. And then we know what we have to look at to make sure, is it titled correctly? Is it insured correctly? What happens to that asset when the family dies and it goes to the next person? And often, like you said, the biggest asset on that balance sheet, on that net worth statement, is a company which has people that it employs. They have customers, they have vendors, they might have buildings and fleets of vehicles and that. But this business is a very valuable asset. And that's the asset that can fluctuate the most in value, because when it's planned properly and all these appropriate steps are taken to prepare for the sale or exit or transition of the company, then it ends up being a much bigger number on that balance sheet. And worst case, the owner dies and none of that stuff is done, then that number becomes a much smaller number, and the family suffers because they didn't get the value of what was built over all those years in that business. That's why we spend so much time, Tom, of course, looking at the business, talking about the company, so that we can help solidify the value and lock in that value as much as possible for the family.
Yeah, and a big concern that we always want to be is what could throw a monkey wrench in your plan. Like I said, our clients, they got an incredible balance sheet, they got an incredible net worth. What could cause a problem? Well, health issues, life
Yep.
insurance coverage, disability, long-term care, and property insurance. I mean, think about California and those fires and those folks that had their most of their net worth in their homes, and now those
Yep.
insurance companies aren't paying out. Well, part of
Yep.
what we try to do for our family office is have experts in line that'll review all those insurance policies and are they appropriate.
Right,
Maybe that a
exactly.
little bit, Armando.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want to find out after the fact that you didn't have the right coverage. And when we talk about insurance, I think people's minds go in different directions. Some of the listeners might think about life insurance. Well, yeah, that is an insurance. Yeah, that has a place. But what about that everyday insurance on your house, that everyday insurance on your car? What about that health insurance that every day is there 24/7? So if you have a health issue, it kicks in to pay for those bills. As I'd say most people probably know, the one of the biggest causes of bankruptcy is a health issue. And a health issue means expensive health costs at hospitals and physicians. And if you don't have the right health insurance, it can put the family into bankruptcy. So the insurance, like you mentioned, Tom, it isn't just the life insurance, and it isn't just the insurance on the house. It's the insurance on everything, because the way we're helping to protect that family's overall net worth and help them keep that lifestyle is we're looking at insurance on everything so that it is covered to the appropriate amounts. And there's a plan B that is there as well, which is often the umbrella policies for commercial or umbrella for personal liability policies. But those are there as a reserve so that if there's a problem, you're covered. And we try to try to make sure things are covered as much as possible with a first layer, a second layer, a third layer. And that's why we always talk about different types of trusts, different types of LLCs, and different types of insurance on everything to protect the family.
Yeah, so this kind of finishes up our checklist. That this is a checklist that we sent out to all of our clients in January. What issues we want them to kind of be thinking about. We touched on personal issues, cash flow issues, asset and debt issues, tax issues, insurance issues, legal issues. The beginning of the year is a great time to kind of be thinking about that. So, any other
Exactly.
thoughts there, Armando, before we wind it up?
No, yeah, it is a brand new year. Of course, here we are in January of 2026, and people often look at a new year as new opportunities and doing things differently, doing things better, health goals, maybe financial goals, maybe career goals. And all those are great because it can be very motivational, very aspirational. And I'd say that as you're looking at this year and thinking about last year, look at last year. What would you like to see differently? Well, how can you make that happen this year? And that's why having the goals in mind can be so helpful for all of us, because we're human, and having those targets to shoot for can always be very helpful for us.
All right, awesome. All right, well, thanks, Armando.
Yep. Thank you, Tom.
All right, take care.